Hey guys, welcome to Project Metal Music's YouTube channel with the host Elion, and we are here with John and Alison from Roses Unread. So, hey guys, welcome.
Hey, thanks for
Hey,
having us.
thank you for having us.
My pleasure. So, guys, could you introduce yourselves and what you do within the band?
Yeah, I'm John. I play guitar.
I'm Allison. I sing. We both write synth parts too. I guess you could say that too.
We're
We kind of do
I
we
guess
do our
yeah,
main parts, but a little bit everything else too.
yeah, we're the primary writers of the band, you should say. Us and our producer, Dave Cowell, who's based out of Memphis, Tennessee. Um yeah, Jed and Rocky, our bassist and drummer, they're not here today. We are actually in the middle of getting everything organized. We're gonna go record a new song starting tomorrow. We're kind of at the tail end of recording an album, and we just released the third single from that album called Fireflies. We put that out what, last month?
July 15th.
Yes.
Premiered.
So it hasn't quite been out a month yet, and we put out a new music video for that. And like I said, it's the third installment of this cycle that we're doing, and the whole kind of theme behind, without getting like too long-winded, we in 2019 we released our album called Rapture, and then right after that, unbeknownst to us, we had a global pandemic. And so this series of songs that we've been working on since like 2021, that we're working on finishing up, this is going to be like the post Rapture series, and this is all the story of what happened after the Rapture that the 2019 Rapture album was about.
Cool. So, let's dive into some questions. So, as kids, what were you listening to?
How far back you want to go?
As far back as you want.
Oh, my first memory is the Beatles. Because when I was 3 or 4, my mom and dad played them religiously. And I remember every Saturday morning getting up and the Beatles would be playing while my mom was cooking breakfast. And we literally sit at the table eating and listening to the Beatles. And her brothers both played guitar, and they were both huge Beatles fans. And I remember singing the songs with my uncles while they played guitar. So that's kind of where it all started for me, I would say.
I grew up listening to country music primarily,
There was a
and
little bit of that too.
yeah, and then when I was about 10, I discovered MTV
Yeah.
and really fell in love with Nirvana and the Goo Goo Dolls. And so that was kind of my introduction to like wanting to play guitar, wanting to play in a band type of thing. And so ever since then, I've wanted to play guitar in a band. And yeah, and then I got into metal when I was a teen. When I was 13 or 14, I was like big into punk and skateboarding. And then I got into metal, and I still am into metal. But yeah, that was it.
I went through a pop stage.
I'm still in a pop stage,
like
actually.
a bad one. Like there was I love the Beatles. I'd say like 3 to 8 years old. Probably listened to some other stuff too. I don't remember a lot of, but I can remember going through a Backstreet Boys phase. It was bad. It was in Britney Spears. And I guess I also went like R&B because I love like TLC and stuff like that also. And then my cousin started hanging around these skater boys in high school, and she came with me like a ton of new music, and I'm like, what's all this? And then she introduced me to Corn, and that kind of opened the gates to like the new metal. And I always was told as a child, you can sing, you can carry a tune, but I was super shy, and I didn't want to sing in front of anybody, but I'd sing along to the radio and things like that. And she got me into Corn, and then that opened up all those other doors. Then I was like, you know what? I want to do this. I want to be in a band. I want to sing, and it's been nonstop ever since.
Yeah, so I've got a question from Bastian. He asks, will the new album be an album out in vinyl?
That's something we've talked about because our bassist Jed is a huge vinyl guy, and like we all had vinyl growing up. Like we're not that old, but we all, like, I remember I had my mom's old vinyl player. Vinyl is super expensive, and I can say that if there's enough demand for us to release our new album on vinyl, then we'll definitely do it. But like I said, vinyl is super expensive, and I don't know if it's hard for a band our size to do it. But yeah, I would love to. I haven't even checked and seen how much it is to do it now. But if we were to just release like a few hundred copies on vinyl, I would love to do that. So that's definitely been talked about, but as of yet, we don't know yet.
Cool.
Thank you for your
So
question.
yeah, yeah. So who actually got you into music? Was it a family member or a friend or somebody who is a passing acquaintance got you into music?
Well, for you, it was like your whole family basically was like.
Well, my uncle in particular, because he always had the guitar out, and he was just always around, and I sang with him, so that kind of started it all. And just family members encouraging me that I could carry a tune, and if I'd stop being so shy, I might could do something. And it took a lot, but I broke out of my shell, and now I love it. So it's a lot of that encouragement though that helped me.
For me, it was neither one of my parents really did music, and I don't have any brothers or sisters. I had some cousins that were really into it, but when I was really young, I had a babysitter, and it was his name was Wesley, and he and I are still good friends to this day, and he was 4 or 5 years older than me, and he would stay with me during the summers when my mom and dad were working and I was out of school. My dog's barking.
Told you.
But yeah, he's the one that got me into like MTV, and then he later got me into punk music. So he was kind of the one that kind of opened the door for me and was like, this is what a guitar can sound like. Because up until then, I knew like who Metallica was, but I never had really listened to them. And I mean, I had always listened to music with guitars in it, but when I heard Nirvana, for instance, for the first time, and like Stone Temple Pilots, I was like super, super young when that music came out. And it was, I wasn't even listening to it when it was popular. I was listening to it years later. But yeah, like the grunge era of music, that's when, like the end of the grunge era, that's when I was like, man, guitars sound really awesome. Because I never really got into the hair metal, like the 80s stuff. Like our drummer Rocky loves the 80s stuff. Like Motley Crue is one of his favorite bands, and I've like a great deal of respect for that era of music as well. But as a child, that never like did anything for me. I thought that was what rock and roll was, and it was. But then like the next generation is what really made me go, man, that's like the kind of like sound I want when I start playing guitar, you know? And it just kind of went from there.
Cool, cool. Jimmy Castro says, "Howdy, partners."
Hey,
Hey,
Jimmy.
Jimmy.
What's
You
up,
know
dude?
Jimmy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we know Jimmy.
So who actually inspired you to become a musician? I know. Was it Alison? Was it your uncle
Yeah, I'd say
who actually inspired you?
I'd say my uncles for sure. My cousin who like got me into corn, she was always my biggest fan too, and she'd always make people listen to me and what I wanted to do. And she's like, she's good. You need to listen to her. But she was big on supporting and really, just really being like a number one fan at the time. And that was her dad. And he passed away, and when he was only 40 years old, and that was a hard thing for me because he was one of the ones that really got me into wanting to play live music and be a musician. So I have a lot of respect for him.
Yeah, yeah. John, who inspired you to become a musician?
Ooh,
You had your cousin was when
yeah.
that's
So
what the
my
stories you told me.
um, like, well, I got into music, and then I had a cousin who I grew up in Arkansas, and I had a cousin who lived in California, and I saw him every couple of years, and he was a lot older than me, but he was a drummer. And then when I was old enough to like really appreciate music, and I would be around him, that and I would see like he was in a band for a little while called Systematic, and they were on tour with Stained and Godsmack and Cold, and they did a lot of shows with like a lot of big bands around that time in the early 2000s. And I was not even old enough to drive yet, but they they came through Memphis on tour, which was close to where we lived. And so I went to see him play for, basically like in a coliseum. And I was like, holy shit, this is the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my life. Because the only, like, I don't think I've been to like smaller rock concerts, I guess, but nothing that had that much energy, and nothing that was that loud. And I walked away from that experience. I think for the next year or two, when he was on tour, my mom worked part-time at the airport, and my mom was really supportive of my music. So whenever he would be in a town that had an airport close by, my mom and I would fly and get a hotel and like go see the show, and he would get us like passes or whatever. And man, and it was just like that whole experience of like the band, like, and I mean, I didn't he didn't like let me be involved in like the partying and stuff. He really didn't partake in that because he was married and had a kid already, and he really wasn't into like partying and all that. But I didn't get to see that. But as far as being around in the backstage area and watching these bands perform, that kind of just that changed me. And that was like being introduced to a whole new world. And from there on, I was like, I got to be in a band that's like playing shows and like has people coming out. And I never really wanted to do it for the money or anything. It was always like I want to I just always, my creative artistic side always compelled me to create something that meant something to somebody else. And that's the whole reason I've always done it, is I wanted to be a part of something that makes somebody else feel cool, you know? And I have him to thank for that.
Cool. If any, what bands were you in before Roses Unread?
You want to go first?
We were in quite a lot of different bands. None that really did anything worth mentioning, I guess. But you know, typical teenage local band stuff. Like, I played with some guys that I went to church with. I played music in my church band, and then Allison was in a lot of bands with people that she grew up with. And the way we've met each other is I was in a band. Basically, I was playing in a band, and the drummer of that band and I became good friends. And then he left that band to join another band, and then they needed a bass player, and I was playing bass at the time. He called me up, and he's like, "Hey, we're gonna go record an album. You want to learn the songs and come?" And I was like, okay, that sound like getting a van with a bunch of dudes that smell bad and drive halfway across the country and record some shit. Like, that sounds like the best thing ever. So we hopped in the van and drove down to Florida and recorded. It ended up only being like a 3-song EP because we were trying to shop it out to labels at the time. And that band played a lot around the Southeast United States. And that's how I met Allison, because she was in a band from Tennessee and they were kind of doing the same thing. So we played a lot of shows together, and then she and I became good friends. And then she kind of cut ties with a lot of her old members, and they all kind of went their separate ways. They all stayed friends, of course, but she had this like vision for this new project, and she kind of convinced me to come on board shortly after she started it up. And by that time I was out of that other band, and yeah, that's just how like the two of us ended up playing music together. And we've kind of, I wouldn't say like I started this band with her, but I mean, I was kind of there for like the whole thing. I was kind of on the sidelines, I guess, before I was actually in the band. So yeah, that's kind of how that's how it all worked out.
Yeah. So, what has the band been up to? I know you mentioned earlier that you are in the process of doing some final touches to an album that you've been writing for the last couple of years. Could you tell us what you've been up to with that?
Yeah. So we've put out a few different albums and EPs over the last few years. And in 2018, our drummer at the time, he left, and we picked up our current drummer, Rocky. And Rocky and I grew up in neighboring towns, and we've known each other forever. And Rocky was in a band that did a lot of big stuff. Like, they did a lot of tours with Shinedown and Bush, and did a lot of shows with like Godsmack and Papa Roach. And they were kind of the up and coming band in Memphis, Tennessee for a while. And they kind of fizzled out over time. And so he came on board, and we had written most of the material for the Rapture album already, and he came in and helped us refine it. And then we put it out in 2019, and it seemed like for the first time we were getting some traction. Like, people outside of our immediate local and regional circles were paying attention to us. And then we had just signed with a new booking agent. we had just we had a lot of things in the pipeline that we were going to do for like 2020, 2021, and then COVID-19 hit, and that put a damper on like everybody, you know, worldwide. And then during that time, Allison and I were stuck here, and this is our studio, and the studio that we've been using for years is like an hour away in Memphis. But you know, at the time we couldn't travel, we couldn't play shows. The four of us band members, you know, we didn't even feel safe getting in the same room with each other. So what we would do is, thank goodness for technology, Allison and I just started writing a lot. And I can't tell you how many versions of different songs we wrote, like demos, just and you know, a lot of them would be just like a verse and a chorus, or like just a riff, or like a melody. So we would just write and write and write and send them to the other two guys. And the one song, you know, we were kind of thinking about, what do we do next once the world started opening back up, and in 2021 we started playing shows again. We're like, well, what do we do from that for now? And so we signed a deal with our producer, not really like a record deal, but basically we set up studio time with our producer to come in and do a song every quarter. And the first song that kind of set the tone for the rest of the album was called Leave a Light On. And that song, we put it out last year, and that's the first installment of our post Rapture series. And the idea is, for Rapture, you have this story of this character navigating this post-apocalyptic Rapture type situation, and then we literally almost like had, for lack of a better term, a rapture of sorts happen in the world, you know, less than a year after we released that album, like 4, 5, 6 months after we released that album. So now we're like, okay, what do we do after? What does the character do after this happens? And Leave a Light On is a song about, it's very pandemic influenced. It's about not being able to see your loved ones, not being able to do the things you used to do, and missing the people that you're used to being around. And that kind of set the tone for the rest of the songs. And since then we've put out 2 more. So like I said, we just released our 3rd installment of the new album called Fireflies. And so all those music videos are on our YouTube page. But tomorrow we're going to record song 8 for the new album. And by the end of this year, we'll have the album finished up. And next year we will release like the complete thing. We're going to release a few more singles here and there, just to kind of keep people interested, and kind of let people see where we're going with it. But yeah, that's kind of what we've been up to. We've been really focusing on trying to write the best material we can. We've really changed our musical direction a few times. And so there's songs on the album that are more, have a lot of pop influences, and there's songs that are just bangers that have riffs. So you get to see a lot of the 4 of us, you get to see a lot of our influences in all ways, shapes, and forms. And so far we're very proud of how everything's turned out.
Yeah, cool. What has the band got in the future? Got in store for the future after you finished all the mixing and mastering and getting everything ready for the album release? Would you be going on like mini tour type of thing, or are you going to be touring the states, or
Yeah,
trying to
we
get
would.
over to
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
always a plan, is to play as many shows as possible. It's since COVID-19, it's really hard for bands that don't have a record label or a full-time booking agent or like a marketing firm behind them, and we are completely DIY. So yeah, we do play a lot. As of right now, there's no plans for a tour or anything like that. But like I said, we're just kind of focusing on one thing at a time right now, and we hope that with this new material, it opens up some more doors for us in the future.
Cool. Cool. What social media are you on? Like Twitter or Instagram, Facebook, that type of thing.
Facebook and Instagram primarily. YouTube is where all of our vlogs and music videos land. But yeah, Facebook.
We have a main website too.
Yeah, rosesunreadofficial.com is probably the best place to find any of our stuff, and we all, like the band, we all run that. So if you want to send us a message on there, it's going to be one of us responding to it. Yeah,
Cool.
we do all that. Like on the Instagram page, like I do all the photography for that goes up there. We've got a really good video team that works with us and to kind of help us with our vision. So yeah, just we're not really active on Twitter, but yeah, like primarily Facebook and Instagram.
Cool. Cool. This is probably going to be my last question. Last question, unless somebody wants to come in and ask a question. My question is: any advice for people who want to become a musician?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Yeah, any advice for people who want to become a musician?
So it's just like with anything else. I don't think just it. Number one, do what makes you happy in life. When you say
Yeah.
like do if you want to play music and you want to be in a band, or if you want to draw, or you want to be, whatever, do it, and be just be the absolute best that you can be at it. um don't compare your success or lack thereof to somebody else's. Be the best, most authentic version of yourself. And that's one thing that me personally, I have really strived to do in the past, is I always compare myself to other guitar players and other songwriters, and I'm not them and they're not me. So I've kind of shifted, and it's since I've done this like mental shift, I just want to be the best version of myself, basically. And same for Allison. I don't really, we don't care so much about numbers and who's more popular and who's technically better at what they do or whatever. We're just trying to make music that we think is cool and that that our fans appreciate. So I would say if you want to be a musician, just like do it and just be obsessed with it and just be the best version of yourself, and don't worry about what anybody else says. If you're having fun with it, then you've already succeeded, so go for it.
Couldn't have said it better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so anyway, guys, thank you so much for coming on and doing this interview. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Been an absolute
Well,
pleasure.
Thank you.
yeah, thanks for having us. We appreciate your time so much.
Yeah. My pleasure. My pleasure. So, yeah, go check out Roses Unread. I've put all the links in to their social media down in the description. So go check them out.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Have a good evening.
You too.